Good evening, everybody. It is 7:02. We gave everybody a chance to come in, so thank you all for coming tonight. This is new for us, relatively new. We haven't had too many open forums, and as time goes on, we realize, our council realizes that there's a lot of people in our church that aren't represented properly at voters' meetings, things like that. So they're not really aware of what goes on within the church and the detail-oriented things. So what we wanted to do was to make sure that there's open lines of communication. We want to be very transparent, let you know what's going on. There's a lot of exciting things that are going on at Trinity right now. And so what we want to do tonight is kind of give you a brief overview of things that we have been doing, things that are upcoming, and there's some exciting things that we want everybody to be involved in, and this gives you an opportunity to see what's going on, ask questions, open dialogue back and forth. So with that being said, I will let you know Pastor Cook was going to be here tonight, but he's taking care of his flooded basement still. So I am going to open up with a devotion. I'm not Pastor Cook, but I'm a little older. I thought this was pretty good. I found this because part of what we're going to talk about are the renovations that are going on across the street and here. And we're taking care of God's house. So there's this devotion from Mark Jeske, and the title is Leaders Take Care of God's House. You can tell a lot about a congregation by the appearance of its property. Mown grass, trimmed shrubbery, clean restrooms, and an adequate sound system send a message that the people who claim the place take pride in it and are serious about their mission of sharing the gospel. It also means that they love the God they worship and want his house to be fit for a king. Leaders take care of God's house. They build a culture in their congregation where all the members feel a sense of ownership and responsibility for their place of worship because it is dedicated to the name and glory of the Lord. Nehemiah chapter 10 is an extraordinary document. The provincial governor, Nehemiah, regional tribal leaders, priests, and Levites all prepared and signed a covenant document in which they committed as a nation to reform their national life. All the people bound themselves to its provisions with a solemn oath. One key feature was their promise to honor their God by the way in which they cared for his house. Nehemiah chapter 10 says, the people of Israel, including the Levites, are to bring their contributions of grain, new wine, and olive oil to the storerooms, where the articles for the sanctuary and for the ministering priests, the gatekeepers, and musicians are also kept. We will not neglect the house of our God. Taking care of God's house is but one way God's people show their love to him. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, please help us to be good stewards with everything you have given us. Give us the wisdom to share your blessings with our time to serve you as well as our brothers and sisters, with our talents to carry out your ministry, and with our treasures, because everything we have is a gift from you. Amen. We're going to start off with State of Trinity video. Kind of gives you a recap of the last year and 15 months. We'll do this right here.
You've probably heard by now, we, like so many other churches, have canceled all of our worship services. It's frustrating.
Pastor Cook recorded that video 15 months ago. It's been quite the journey, hasn't it? For a number of months, we went completely online for worship. We even celebrated Holy Week just online.
This, for me, is, as a pastor, the greatest day that there is. Like, this is the Super Bowl for pastors. This is the finals. This is what it's all about. This is the day that all week we are frantically and nervously working for, but then all of that goes away because this is the day where we get to stand up in front of so many people, and maybe because of the circumstances being what they are, maybe more people than we ever have before.
We all learned something. You cannot keep the gospel down. Jesus will make a way for his word to be spread. A pandemic did not stop us from teaching children about Jesus, including children from across the United States. We had our first ever all virtual vacation Bible school. Our Trinity Timbers and Treehouse started up also. Adults learned about Jesus and multiple groups joined Trinity. We reached to the community with our reverse trick or treat, our Faith in Action Day. We even had a virtual one-day Christmas in a box, and we ran a live nativity with Zion. And Illinois Lutheran Schools was in person the entire year.
It's the opportunity to share Jesus every day with students. Time for them to hopefully see it by example, but hopefully to show that they are definitely loved. They're loved by their Savior. They're loved by their teachers. God is in control. Our schedules get upset. Our school year gets upset. Our activities get upset. We can take solace in the fact that from Psalm 46, God tells us to be still and know that I am God, and that God is in control even when things seem chaotic in our world.
God has worked through each of us. Now, so many things are getting back to normal. God is good. There are a lot of things that are happening right now. The Illinois Lutheran Building Project is exciting. Our own lobby refresh will be a welcome update to our facilities. And we are going through our own long-range vision planning. March of 2020 seems like a long time ago. It was. But God was with us. He blessed us. And He will continue to work through us and bless us. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future.
Okay, so we've got a few things we're going to discuss tonight, and because of the Pastor Cook switching around, Gary and I did some little switching around. So Gary's going to go over some board goals that the different boards established back in February when we had our leadership retreat.
Yeah, that video is pretty remarkable. 15 months of a pandemic when the world was pretty much shut down. Church did not stop. Well, for that time, it didn't stop. And that's partially because of the leadership philosophy we have here at Trinity as far as planning for the future, setting goals, and working to achieve those goals. The executive committee, this year this is not all of our goals, by the way, this is just some that we pulled out that we thought were the most important. We're going to complete the vision process. I'm not sure exactly when that'll take place, but there's a bunch of dates coming up. There's a lot of dates coming up that we're going to be working to set that vision. We're going to work to reorganize church structure to empower and maximize the gifts and abilities of women. We're going to implement cultural competency training. About 3 or 4 weeks ago, something like that, we had our initial training with Grace in Action out of Milwaukee. They came down, led us through a seminar, if you will, a one-day seminar on understanding other cultures and other ethnicities and truly looking at what we're doing to outreach to those individuals. So that's an exciting step forward. Okay. Board of Trustees is more functional goals in the building. They want to continue working on the fire alarm system and sanctuary, repair and damage the different limestone and plaster on the inside of the north wall of the sanctuary. Okay. Board of Adult Spiritual Growth, they're pretty focused on one goal, and that is to structure and implement the sustainable growth groups, those individual growth groups, and getting those going and providing that opportunity for our members. Board of Elders support and establish the members' cares team, develop an information flow path between elders and the MCT. Mark, can you kind of give us an idea of the member care team? I think I know what it is, but I don't want to misspeak.
How about if I let the
whoever wants to say it can say it. That'd be great. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, the member care team is a group of people in the congregation that are, number one, they're taking care of different members of the congregation. They have selected their people they're gonna care for. They're contacting them, they're making sure things are going well for them. They're checking to see if there's something they need, what can we pray for them for, and what do they need in that respect. And we're forwarding that information to where they need to be, whether it needs to be the Stevens ministry, or the pastor care, or the new,
Peter.
Leslie Jennings.
Peter.
The-
Oh,
Peter
no, it's,
No,
yeah.
she's,
Is it Racine or something like that?
no, she's the,
Like
she's
it-
making sure people get rides to where they need to go or whatever. She's taking care of their,
Okay.
Yeah,
yes, thank you.
whether it's
Special
the
needs
church,
coordinator.
doctor's appointments, et cetera.
Yeah, so, thank you very much. And then in addition to that, they're sending cards out. They're sending birthday cards, they're sending anniversary cards. If they know that they're ill, they're sending get well cards. And they're also sending, there's a group of them that are gonna be taking on the recent comprimands to periodically send things out to them to remind them that, yay, yeah, you're confirmed, but you're not done yet. And keep that going. And we just had some new members join, so we'll have to assign them to people too. So it's a very active committee. Right now, there's only about 20. My dream was to have 50, but 20 is not too bad, and so we're happy with that, but we would love to have more, and we'll add them as we can.
Thank you.
So we're going.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yep, great stuff.
And you never know when you're going to be asked to speak.
Phyllis?
Board of Worship, they want to implement a Welcome Home Sunday, which is so very fitting after the 15 months that we've had. I'm not sure exactly when we're looking for that. September, thank you.
There you
And that's going to be a great day. Evaluate the feasibility of children's participatory service within our service, kind of the children's sermon kind of thing. They're going to do that as well. Outreach, engage digital worshipers, online greeter. They can lead to possible podcasts, things like that. That is just starting to be explored now as far as an entire, almost completely different kind of ministry for digital worshipers. Increased understanding of our community cultures, that ties back to the executive committee goal. It fits Crete, University Park, Park Forest. The area just does not, it's not the same 20 years ago. Stager, it's different. It's different, and we have to know, we have to understand that. We have to embrace it, and we have to reach out to those individuals as well. Board of Families, they want to plan a night out for adults. I believe they've done that already. I think they've done that, and there's some information will be coming out about that. And they are going to restart teen ministry. Probably one of the most common responses in the listening sessions was something about teen ministry. So, okay. Any questions? Comments, concerns? I'm going to make him answer. So.
You're a good teacher, Gary.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll take this one too, I guess. Construction is well underway. I don't know if you've seen the videos that Principal Falk has been posting on Facebook. The building looks slightly different now. It looks slightly different than it did before. Construction is well underway. The delegates approved a special endowment loan about three weeks ago or so. The cost of the project did come in higher than what we anticipated. Because we have hard numbers now, before we were all kind of just estimates, and we have harder numbers now. And with that money and the money from the land sale, Phase 1A is fully funded. That money will then, that loan money will be repaid with the capital campaign once we start that and launch that. So you can see some of the pictures in here. This is nothing. We're weeks past this. These are old pictures. There's literally, they're digging holes in the floor. They're digging trenches for pipes, and it's a remarkable opportunity to put some work into a building that needs to be worked on. Go ahead.
The bottom left-hand corner, there's nothing there, all that concrete's gone, and there's a 4-foot hole down the middle of it.
Yeah, it's gone. Yeah, it's just trenched all the way down. Yeah, and there were some surprises, I guess, while they were taking some things apart. There was definitely some church work that was going on over the years. So definitely some church work. So that's okay. We're the goal for the project is July 4th. Jeff uses a phrase. I can never think of the phrase. We have to be pouring concrete by the 4th of July. As long as we're doing that, we're on pace to start school on time. We'll see. It's an aggressive schedule. It's an aggressive schedule. Okay, but this is a long time coming. I'm not sure if everybody knows this, but this. Go ahead.
everybody pray for that foreman, 'cause I tell you what, that guy is unbelievable.
Yeah.
He has people running all over the place. There's 5 different companies doing things and stuff, and he's got them all working where they can work.
Yeah.
And he's doing a fantastic job, so keep praying for that guy.
He's going to earn that retirement at the end of this one. This is his last project, and he's retiring, so he's going to earn that retirement.
Going out with a bang.
Yeah. So for those of you that don't know, the planning for this started 4 years ago, 4 to 5 years ago. We initially thought we knew we had to do something with the elementary school. There was a bunch of ideas floated around, and then prices came in, and we had to change those ideas because the cost of those things, it was just not feasible for us. So this plan was actually presented by Joe in 2019 or something like that, January, February 2019, and we've been working on this plan, getting to this point for that long.
So this is really exciting, and Gary, you could probably share a little bit more. I know you're done now, right? You
I have
retired?
2 days left.
3 days.
3 days
and
left.
then he's been doing double duty, president of the, or chairman of the school board and on the executive board here. So he's had a lot of meetings lately. But Jeff Falk, principal there, was telling us that it's exciting that there's a lot of interest in new families coming in, seeing this. That's just seeing this. You've got people that are wanting to go to this school. So can you imagine once the outside's done, there might not be enough room. That would be a great problem to have, right?
That would be a good problem to have.
And they can just come across the street here. That's our goal. Come across the street too. So it's good stuff.
Mark?
Yes.
Can I just officially offer up a thank you to Gary for serving as president of the school board? And
Yes.
Thank you.
Like we said, we have to celebrate the wins too.
Celebrate the win, yeah.
So Gary, can you tell everybody here a little bit about what Phase 1A is this year and what the plan is for Phase
Sure.
1B
Phase
next
sure.
year?
Phase 1A, Phase 1A and 1B are all elementary school, and then Phase 2 is a multi-purpose facility on the other campus when we get to that point. Phase 1A is mostly all infrastructure, plumbing, electric, things of that nature. Things that, like
Restrooms,
plumbing,
bathrooms.
restrooms, new bathrooms, new ADA compliant, yes, bathrooms, I believe, yeah. Larger bathrooms. New boiler. That boiler,
Go back to
that
that
boiler
picture.
was
Was that
in
in there?
service, I don't know what that was. The empty spot was.
Yeah,
It's right
this
up
was
in
where the
upper right.
boiler
That's where the
used to
boiler
be.
was.
Yeah, that's
Um,
what it used to be. There'd be 2 little ones about the size of the hot water heater.
Yeah, yeah,
Crazy.
yeah.
That's all they need now.
That boiler,
It heated.
well beyond its service years.
How many
50+.
kids did that thing heat?
Like, exactly, that's what we were talking about, how many kids sat in that building and got heat from that
For
that
50
boiler over
years.
50 years. It's just amazing. And then, it's amazing that it lasted that long. So,
A lot of duct tape.
lots of work. So, all right.
And Phase 1B then?
That's Phase 1A. Phase 1B is and then Phase 1A also includes the new office and the new entryway. And the conference room is part of the office, the general work area for teachers. And then Phase 1B is more classroom refresh, exterior, that gray stucco on the outside, landscaping, I would hope.
It's
And
the bones versus the sizzle.
Yeah. So we had to add a few things and then central air next year, because Jeff found the solution with the window units to get us to next year to cover that. So that's not as urgent need as it has been in the past. So
And there will be a capital campaign
launching in
coming up.
August.
Yeah.
Launching in August.
Just so you know too, that we got some other things for the high school too. This year, every classroom will have air conditioning.
Good.
Oh.
Awesome. That's great.
Good. Good.
So remind me about the gym and the stage area, is that being redone at all, or?
That is not in the scope of the project. I believe it's not in this part of the project, but I think we did discuss that. Like, we want to put something into the stage, some work on just repairing the components of it, painting it. I mean, we can't have a new rest of the building and not have that look good as well. But I mean, that will be up to whoever's taking over and their plan moving forward. So there and then there.
Are you gonna get rid of that kitchen?
No, no, but we're not, it's not gonna be used, it's not
Okay.
gonna be used. We're not really doing anything in the gym kitchen area, we're not really doing any kind of remodeling in there.
That's a project that doesn't have to be, it's not,
Yeah,
exposed to everything else, it's something that can be done anytime.
right.
So, it's, all the stuff they're doing now, the stuff that's in the ground, in the lighting, all the brand new electric and stuff. So that all is
Need that first.
initial,
before we
right.
do that.
Anything else after that, we can be done,
Yeah.
even the stage and stuff like that, all that stuff can be done during the year, actually.
Sure, right. The main parts of this are the infrastructure, the things that make the building work, that you don't necessarily see. It's important that, but we did add the office and the bathrooms because it's great to say, hey, we've got all this fancy new plumbing, but nobody can see it. So we needed to have components that people could see as well. So, and the reason that first part of the phase changed was because we didn't want to have to go back next year and redo stuff. So we had to add a little bit to the first phase, so we didn't have to replicate work next year. So, go ahead.
What would, if any, are there any safety considerations going into the building? Anything like?
Well, the fire alarm system is going to be upgraded. I'm not sure to what extent, but I know it's in there.
The entry.
The entryway, we have a new entryway that will be, I mean, it's going to be locked like it is now, but it won't, there'll be no access to the building just like it is now, but it'll be just be newer and more secure.
The big difference for the fire alarm system
Yeah.
was that this fire alarm system that they have now is not attached to the fire department.
Right.
It would go off and we have to call them. Now it will get attached to them, so they will have immediately. So.
And there are other safety things that Jeff had implemented prior to that will continue. You know, in the crazy world that we live in, there's, you know, things that you have to be aware of. So, yeah. Any other questions on that? It's exciting stuff. It's exciting stuff, and it's a long time coming. It's a long time coming. So.
And part of this school stuff that we heard some comments, you know, we're going through this vision planning and through the listening groups. Some of the comments were over the past many years, the feeling was it started to be where the school is the school, Trinity's Trinity, where in the past, long time ago, you didn't know the difference. You know, it was the school and Trinity were like this. So what we want to do is to get that feeling, that where we're partners in everything we do, where it's not just the school and it's not just us. We work together. And you'll see later, a big part of our budget is to support, you know, the school. So our members here at Trinity have an active participation in that school, and we want to keep that going and increase it.
And I don't, Al, if I'm stepping on your toes, I'm sorry.
You guys just
There's one component. This is a partnership, like Mark said. After the land sale, you know, I met with Pastor Italiano, and I was kind of jumping around the question, and he's like, "How much do you want?" You know, and it was a number that when we got to the meeting, and we had the meeting, when Trinity voters approved $500,000 to go to the school project. It was a bold number. It was a very humbling number. And without that, we would not be where we're at. We wouldn't be doing this work right now. So we have $1 million of our own money between the land sale from the delegates and Trinity voters. And then we've also borrowed that special $1 million loan from the endowment that we're going to use to pay back. So roughly, Phase 1A is about $1.9 million. So, which is a far cry from the 9.7 that we started with 4 years ago. So, yeah.
Well, you'd almost have to live in a cave today if you didn't realize how much everything is going through the roof, and we have no control. There's no control. And the longer we waited, the worse it was going to get. You just can't wait.
Right.
So we were committed. It's worth it.
We had a great question. It was a fantastic question at the delegate meeting. Well, what if we don't raise enough money to pay it back? I'm like, that's a great question, but I'll tell you this: the work's got to be done. It's just got to be done. It's just, you know, and the delegates agreed, and they voted in that manner.
So on to another project.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Sometimes I have, last time I do sometimes. What is the plan B if construction's delayed and not ready for school?
We had there. There are some contingencies. We stopped school a week early so that they could get in and do demolition right away. We have some leeway, a few weeks that we could build in and delay starting. If we ever got to the point there is an empty school in Stager, that is a possibility. Not that we've ever discussed that, but it is a possibility. Go ahead.
I know one of the contingency plans was to start school a week later.
Mhm.
Also, the way the construction is set up, everything is supposed to be workable, so they might be working on things, but school classrooms and stuff actually right now aren't even, other than being dirty right now from the dust, they're not being affected at all. So that part of the class will be ready, and the bathrooms are supposed to be finished. So if anything is not finished, it would probably be most of the office area. So the school would still be able to be.
And there's alternatives. I mean, we could have school here if we needed to. There's a
And I'm assuming
ton of
we
options.
have-
I don't know
we
what that
have
was.
Clauses in our contract that compels them to.
Yes,
time
yeah,
that they
yeah,
do
there's,
things like
yes.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, there is a time frame that they need to be complete by.
Rich had a question.
Go ahead.
Did I hear you say before that the delegates were unanimous in the vote to do this?
No, I said they voted, they voted in favor, and there was one vote against.
I thought I heard the word unanimous.
No, I said they voted
I think
in,
there were two votes.
well,
But let's forget.
yeah. For the loan, to my knowledge, there was only one. But I mean, it was definitely, it was overwhelmingly in favor. So as far as the other votes, I'm not sure. So. Okay.
Okay. On to another project. This one over here. So, as you know, we are embarking on a refresh of the lobby area. And you can see from the pictures here back, 3 months ago now. Furniture has been ordered, flooring has been ordered, general contractor has been hired. Some of his work, he's already started ordering the materials for new doors, windows, the coffee area. So now it's a matter of timing. So we have some scheduling things that are coming up. There's a we originally wanted to start in July, but more than likely, unless it's minor things, that won't happen. Our goal is to start, we have a wedding in the middle of the month, a funeral near the end, and then we want to get started right after that, if we can. Our goal is to have everything completed by the end of August. We're hoping. That's our goal. The reason we're doing this is it needs to be updated. It's been 17 years since anything's been done with flooring and painting and things like that. And we're updating, we're making areas that we're hoping to better serve ministry, different small meeting areas. Things are going to small group studies, and this gives areas for people to meet. Better traffic flow. Yep.
Flow on Sundays.
Instead of all the coffee in the corner, everybody's getting crammed in the corner, we're putting it towards the back to increase visibility for new members, for visitors that come in. They can see, hey, there's the coffee area back there, rather than hidden in the corner. Improve coffee, so we don't have the mud, that we try to sling on Sunday mornings. It's exciting stuff. It's good. Yes.
Mark, maybe you want to touch on the prime real estate?
Yes. Okay. So one of the areas we had, Aspen Group is a group that we hired to do the design for this. They design and build church. It's not structures, but they help with remodeling church facilities. So they're in tune with what churches do, what their goals are. And one of the areas they noticed off the bat was what we call the fireside room is a prime real estate area. So things have changed a lot since we built this structure, the way ministries are served. We're landlocked with our size here, so we try to we asked them to make the best use of the existing space that we have, and what's the best way to do that, knowing that we don't have an unlimited budget. So they said one of the areas was that fireside room. That's prime real estate. That's right when people walk in. So what we're going to do as part of that is, this picture's not up here. No. We're going to open up that room to make it more visible, let light in. We're going to put some windows on this wall right here where that coat rack is. Open up the doors, put double glass doors in so it's visual, inviting. It'll be an area where small groups can meet, Bible studies. It'll also serve as a cry room, so to speak, on Sunday mornings. There'll be a big TV in there that will stream the service. So if there's a child that is having a tough morning, parent can come in there, not miss a beat. They can hear the service. It's quiet. They can close the doors. So that is a great area that it's going to be visual, you know, and very useful rather than the limited use that it has right now.
Mark, you can see the exterior of those windows on that bottom left picture. If you're looking back towards that, that's the hallway part. On the bottom left, right? Isn't that?
Nope, these are the entry doors.
That's the entry door?
Yeah, this
Okay.
is the water
It's the
fountain.
left, yeah. It's the left,
Bathrooms,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, perfect.
So, questions? There has to be a lot. Come on. Elder statesman first. Sorry, Dan. Rich.
I haven't heard any mention where winter coats and things will be hung.
Yes, that's some things that we've struggled with. A couple of things that we've looked at were portable. So it's used very limited, obviously, during the year. So portable racks that can come out of the closets that we can put up, that people can hang their coats on and then put them back. That was one idea. We'll move some to this area right over back here against outside of this wall right here. We'll just reposition in other places. We'll put some in the back. I think, Lori, right?
Yeah, we're holding off on that, waiting to see, not in the back hallway there.
Yeah.
Because those would have just to be hooks.
Okay.
Because there's not enough room.
Stand
So
out.
We'll see what the need is, the actual demand.
Yeah. And part of that thinking back there was people that are serving in the service, singers, organists, everything, they can, ushers, they can put their coats back there. So they're not taking up space out here.
Rich, do you have a recommendation or a suggestion about that?
No, I
Because I was struggling with it.
noticed it was never brought up,
Yeah.
and that's where all the coats are now.
Well, I think, my thought is like 3/4 of the year we don't use them. So I get why you're not making a permanent spot for them, but we definitely are gonna need them at least part of the year.
Yeah.
So I agree with the,
Yeah. It hasn't been lost on us. We're just struggling a little bit with what we're gonna do.
yeah.
He's got to follow up. Yeah.
Mark, I'm sorry, I lose things up here.
That's all right, it's your anniversary, so you're good to go.
You asked about Aspen.
Yeah.
Do you know who did this?
Yeah.
It was Aspen.
It was Aspen.
Yeah.
It was us. They're very familiar with the building. Yeah.
Do you know how long it took them? For what the estimate was? One thing too I want to tell you. When this was built, I think there was plans from Aspen that we talked about, where this wall went out and you'd get the same dimension of these rooms here now, these classrooms. There's that much room to put the corner, right
Oh,
flush with the front of the church.
okay.
They had one more section of this room,
And
like a fourth section. They had another section.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it basically was the same, and I know that's more expensive than remodel, but that's a place that coach could be and this kind of thing.
Sure. So, and we've talked as an exec board and council that there are other things that we want to do down the road. We're trying to take it a little step at a time, especially with the school things that are going. We didn't, there's a lot going on at the same time, so we didn't want to totally step on their toes, get that taken care of. And
Thank you.
yeah, and then there's some, there's the Trinity House there. That is not used. I mean, that's been a thorn in our side for a long time. That's great space for, we've even thrown around for administrative office space.
Mhm.
And that would open up the whole back of that building, you know, widen that out and make it more inviting and usable in those spaces. Then plenty of room for codes.
Yeah, I think, Rich, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think that there was a big plan here to shut the street down and build across the street.
It was mentioned.
But then 2008 happened and those dreams
And
just
the
fizzled
village-
away.
The village at that time
Yeah.
said they, you know, whoever the trustees were
Right.
not negative about it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, speaking of the village, I do want to give them a little bit of credit. They were very generous as far as our permitting goes for the building across the street. So if you see the mayor or the building inspector or anybody in town, thank them.
They saved, I
They
mean,
saved a lot of money.
tens of thousands of dollars.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Hundreds, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, a lot more than tens.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know, Trinity is, you know, over the past few years has really intentionally tried to become a big part of the community. You know, whether it's the Faith in Action Days, the parades, Mary Beth has been fantastic about that, to get Trinity out there and involved and help out the community. And I really think that's helped.
And it also helps that our pastor serves as the fire department chaplain.
Yeah.
Yes.
That really gets them out.
I don't know if they did anything special for us in terms of that, or it's just something they do for, or we were just off on our numbers. That could have been too. So, but nonetheless, the number came in a lot better than we thought. it would.
Yes.
So.
Dan?
Just had a couple things, to Rich's point about Aspen.
Mhm.
I mean, they designed this building 20 years ago, and the guys that were involved in that design are not the ones that are involved in the street design.
Correct.
And, because I sat in on one or two of those meetings, and it sounded to me like the guy that is designing this building, the refresh, would have not done it the way that we did it.
In today's world. And back then, it was okay. You know,
Exactly.
things change.
Right.
But in today's world, absolutely would have been done differently.
Right, so we're
But
not
at the
getting,
time,
we're not getting the same Aspen as what we did last time. But I know there's a lot of aspects of this building that people say, well, why do we do that, isn't that? It's different, it's gonna be better.
Yeah, different time, different
Yep.
different structure
Yep.
at the time. Yeah.
and who knows, by the time we're ready to do, things will change even after that.
Could
So,
be, yeah.
And then the other point was, you did not mention Children's Activity Center. Is that changing at all, that area?
that'll get refreshed in there. New paint, new carpeting in there, other things that I have no idea that they're doing, but they're updating that in there.
Cleaned up.
Just the front part or the back room also?
Just the front part, because that back room is storage, yeah. It's because we're, like
It's
the
the only
coach space,
storage
we're
we
limited
have.
between that room right there and that is our storage.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Somebody's got it, too.
In regards to the fireside room, there are many groups that use that
Mm-hmm.
area. And it's unique in and of itself. You are right, it's prime real estate. Is there going to be anything that is going to be done to allow those groups to still have those same kind of parameters in which to meet there?
Oh, absolutely. So there'll be new furniture going in there, tables, chairs, and actually like a conference table with some higher back chairs, right, Lori? So that definitely is going to be used as meeting space,
Okay.
for sure.
But how do you address the privacy issue when you have like glass windows and glass doors? How do you address that? Or is there going to be elements that will allow that room to be made private? Because I believe that's what we use for brides, for weddings and other corporations, right?
So one of the pieces, Amy, that we addressed with that is that this room right here in the middle center court, we're gonna have to use the space a lot more. So this middle room will be used for those types of things. Just reorganization of office space as well. Melissa's desk and offices in there. And the conference room, Mark, maybe you want to touch on that?
Yeah, that will now become Melissa's office, as well as some meeting space that can be used in her office. So there'll be not only her desk, but there'll be a table and chairs to meet in that back room, which is now the conference room. So that's a little more private too. So that could also possibly be a place for brides, for instance, because that they could just put something in front of that window there.
That was actually kind of my question too, because we also have used that room for rather confidential consultations and for Steve Ministry, and so for what we do, you know, that confidentiality is key, and we need a
Mhm.
place without windows. So I just want to make sure that there's still some place to go for things like that.
Yes, and one of the areas is that conference room back there, because that does have the blinds on the windows, and we could figure out some way to maneuver that small window that's on the door, and that will allow privacy in there. We've got a few. All right. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Pam had her hand up first.
I worked in a conference area for 17 years, and when they remodeled, they went to all glass, you know, glass offices, glass conference rooms like the fronts, and then they realized that they couldn't work that way. And so what they did is they frosted part of the glass. You know, because they saw everybody going by, saw everything going in. But so they frosted just the area where they'd be sitting and looking out, and people would be looking in.
Okay.
But they still had, you know, visibility.
Like
could
natural
still
light
look
coming
down,
in.
you could.
Mhm.
So anyway, that's a thought. It's probably more expensive than maybe putting up blinds or something.
Okay. Thank you. It's a good idea. Mental note, Lori. Yeah. Phyllis.
I was told that Melissa's office was going to be in the fireside room. Now, that's totally wrong.
That's what
Correct. It is there now, but we're gonna move her back there.
And where we count.
Correct. Correct. Yep. Luann was,
Where would the prayer group meet that on Friday mornings if the conference room is no longer the conference room?
so that's a scheduling thing that we'll have to figure out. Probably meet in there.
In where?
In that, what's the fireside room right now?
Right.
So instead of meeting back there, you would just shift it up here.
Just curious.
Yeah, we're still gonna have a conference room, it's just gonna be up here, and it's gonna be structured and organized just a little differently than it is now.
We have all these rooms too.
Yeah, and you have these
Yeah.
rooms too.
Yeah, these are being a lot more utilized by groups and meetings, and, you know, we used to have our council meetings back there, so,
There's tables in it. There's tables in there.
yeah. Who else had their hand up? Rick. and-
Just for instance, blocking the windows and stuff. Dwayne over at the high school, he had the same problem where his office is, the only window was in the hallway. And that's where a lot of the light came into his office, there's no window and stuff. So actually I got him a blind that actually goes up instead of down. So he can have it up when he's on, so nobody can see his computer and all that kind of stuff. And he still gets all the light and stuff like that. So you can do the same thing on doors and stuff. It's pretty easy to install and stuff, and it's very workable and stuff. So if you can do that kind of thing for any kind of windows like that, you need privacy and stuff.
Okay, gives them the opportunity to
Yep.
have some privacy in there. Okay. Rich.
Originally, that room, when Aspen designed it, first thing, it wasn't called the fireside room. Someone else near after was all left, changed it to that. I guess did we have a false fireplace in there or something?
Mhm.
That room originally was to be like a family room for people before a funeral,
Yep.
and for when there was a wedding, the bride could be there, that type of thing. And we would use it when we weren't around for office rooms or conferences. But that was the original intent, but now there is no place, basically for families. The bride better be ready to go in.
We'll find new spots for it, because
No, I
actually.
don't need it.
Yeah. It's funny, because
That's what the original intent was.
Aspen has called that the family room now. That's kind of what we're referring it to, is the family room. Lori.
And just part of the why behind that, right? So we have maybe 2 weddings a year, so that's 2 days a year. Part of what we recognize with that prime real estate is that we want everybody to be able to benefit from that as much as possible. Through COVID and the social distancing thing, we just recognize more people need more space. And even after COVID, people are gonna still be thinking along those lines. So we wanna make it as comfortable as possible. We'd like people to use that space, that family room space on Sunday morning. Take your coffee in there, go sit. There will also be tables in there that will seat 8. And then lots of smaller pieces around that where a lot of people can gather in that room, more people can concurrently gather.
Yeah,
So,
more functional than
and
it
the
is now.
why behind the light in the windows in our growing young conversations, people are looking for more visibility and transparency in today's day and age in terms of whether they're comfortable in the spaces. So that was part of the whys behind the changes that are being made, the things that are happening.
Yes, thank you, Lord. That's a good point, and that's one of the reasons we hired Aspen, and for those reasons right there. They know this stuff, you know, they're good at it, and that's one of the first things they mentioned was that area right there. So, okay, we good? We'll move along.
I already did that.
There we go. Al gets to take over on the
Okay.
fun stuff.
Yeah.
Do I need to use the clicker, Gary?
You can if you want, by all means.
I don't know what you put on these slides.
Everything you sent me.
And I'll use the wrong clicker. Is it right to move forward?
Yeah, I believe.
First of all, I want to thank everybody, like Mark said, everybody for coming to this. So this will be, we believe this will be a regular thing that we'll do before each and every regularly scheduled voters meeting.
Yep.
So
At the
thank you again
minimum.
on behalf of the congregation and the church council and leaders. Thank you.
Can I say something?
Not you.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, thank you actually for having a forum for the women, because like you said, there are a lot of women that aren't represented at all. But I would explain that in church, because if you just say there's a forum before the meeting, I wasn't gonna come, I just was being nice and came with that. But if you explain that it is, so that you get more representation
Yeah.
of women, they might actually show, well, pretty good today, but
Well,
I
there's
think that's a really neat feature.
Many Wells congregations often have them consecutive. They'll have if it's going to be a Sunday afternoon voters meeting, they'll go open for a meeting at 2 and the voters meeting will be at 3:30. So.
I'm proud of the fact that you're doing that, so I'd love for you to explain that to people. That's what you're doing.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yep. That's our goal is when you're in it, you assume, right, that people know. And so we have to get over that hump to make sure we communicate better with everyone. And that's, you know, this is baby steps. We're getting there.
That's wonderful. And you can go ahead now.
It may not be the last time that Pam interrupts me.
This is a love relationship.
And
Just in case you don't know.
And I also wanted to thank Pete for sitting in the front 2 rows.
Yeah.
Thanks, Pete. We have representation.
Well, I was there to take the heat, you know.
I was just looking at that, I'm like, the front row's empty, if this isn't a Wells meeting, I don't know. what it is.
exactly.
So I'm going to quickly go over some highlights here in the finances. I've had the privilege and honor to serve as the treasurer here. And I don't know exactly what it is. I think it's about 30 years. And this is my last year as being the treasurer. So the leadership will be looking to identify and train the next treasurer. So if there's anybody in here that would like to do that, let me know. But we'll certainly support that, and we have some good ideas.
And on that note, I think we probably should pause and give Al a round of applause, because that
Thank you.
Lots
Thanks.
of hours.
Yep.
So we're on a July 1st fiscal year. The school is on a July 1st fiscal year. Makes sense for a school. Our synod is on a July 1st fiscal year. So we are just about to end our fiscal year at the end of June here. These are highlights from the treasurer's report at the end of May. And then the next slide will talk about next year's budget that will be presented tomorrow night to the voters. So the year-to-date general fund receipts through the end of May was $627,000. We project it'll be about $687 at the end of June. And general fund receipts are really 3 main categories. It's your offerings and envelopes, the weekly offerings and envelopes, and that also includes all the electronic giving. We have more and more people giving on our electronic platforms, whether it's online giving on the website, text giving, what I think is known as Simply giving, where you set up repetitive weekly or monthly giving that comes right off of your credit card or your checking account. We'd encourage people to continue to try to do that, because you go through a thoughtful process and you establish regular giving. And if you're people like Lori and I that spend many weekends away at our home in Michigan, we're not here. If you're snowbirds and that, you can continue to support Trinity on a regular basis. That really helps. So general fund receipts include those type of electronic offerings and envelopes during the worship services. And then income from our endowment fund, as well as special designations like, Advent offerings, Lenten offerings that might be designated for the general fund, and gifts. So we do have regular gifts that come in from non-envelope holders or from businesses and that kind of stuff. So that's all part of that projected $687,000. Year-to-date general fund expenses at $683, and that's projected to be $744. So you can see that that's short. So we're looking at a $56,000 deficit. We had a $56,000 deficit at the end of May, projected to be about that same amount at the end of the year. General fund expenses are right on budget. We always do that. This Trinity hardly ever overspends our budget. We do a good job of knowing what that is and stick to the budget. General fund offerings are well below budget. In fact, $43,000 lower than last fiscal year. That's probably a function of COVID. It's probably a little bit of a function of COVID fatigue and coming out of COVID and that, but we got a little work to do. We are projecting that the cumulative general fund surplus, which is the cumulative amount of annual surpluses and deficits over about the last 6 years, will be about $78,000. So we do have a reserve left there. After this fiscal year, it'll be about $78,000. After the $100,000 that comes out of that, that'll be used for the refresh project. Synod and mission offerings are projected to be about $82,000. We set the commitment at $90,000 for this year, and so we'll be about $8,000 short, and we may have a recommendation about how we might make up that difference for our commitment to our synod. Building maintenance fund the balance at the end of May is about $18,000. Typically, we've learned that the building maintenance fund, our trustees really should have about $25,000 to $50,000 in that fund to operate effectively, to be able to deal with projects and repairs and that kind of stuff. So a little bit behind on that too. Total funds on hand, including the facility enhancement fund, which has about $20,000 in it. That fund was established here at Trinity maybe 20 years ago. It's a specific fund to do special projects outside of the normal maintenance and care of the building, but special projects like, I think we've done some of the things with the IT upgrades and stuff like that, so that's kind of, but there's $20,000 in there. The general assistance fund, if it's not clear to everybody, it kind of sounds like the general fund, but the general assistance fund is to help our members and members of the community that may come to us that have special financial needs. And that's administered by our pastors. They determine people come, and a lot of money came in during COVID for that, but there's $18,000 in there. Puppet ministry has $20,000. They're really rich. That was from you guys. Some of you may remember a gentleman that belonged here, Joe Gaudio. He was in the puppet ministry. So when he died, he left a fair amount of his estate to that puppet ministry. And then, of course, the second loan we got from the federal government, what's called the Payroll Protection Plan, PPP loan, $58,000. We still have that. So there's about $307,000 of total funds that we have. So we're in good shape financially, and we can pay our bills. There's no concern about that. Out of that $307,000, though, we will spend $100,000 in the next 2 or 3 months with a refresh. So we'll be down to $207,000. It was not mentioned during the refresh thing. There have been people of our congregation that have given to the refresh project, because I think you guys kind of indicated it might be you're having trouble keeping it at the $100,000 budget. I think we've had about $15,000 of gifts towards the refresh project, so that'll help get that thing in budget. And this is the proposed budget that will be presented to the voters. This was approved for recommendation by the church council. Proposed general fund expenses. This is where the money goes. This is where our offerings go for our operating. General fund, we're gonna start, we're considering about changing some of our fund names. So many places, the school calls it an operating fund. We call it a general fund. But salaries and benefits for our two pastors is about $192,000. That's based upon Synod code for pastors. We have it at the highest level. We pay our pastors as well as we can possibly pay them. And then that's benefits, pension, health insurance is a big portion of that. And then included in this year, we'll explain this to the voters carefully tomorrow, we've introduced a new benefit for our pastors where they would be eligible for up to $3,000 of Illinois Lutheran Schools tuition assistance each. It's up to half of their tuition, but capped at $3,000. So that's part of that package there. And then payroll for other staff, so that's our church secretary, our outreach administrator, our two people that work for PMM, Personal Memory Ministry. It's actually 7 people.
Colton?
Yeah, Colton.
Big part.
Colton's a big part of it. IT person. And his job's become more and more important and will continue to be more and more important. So we're delighted to have you. So there were some significant pay increases for our staff people. It actually turns out.
Embarrassed right now 'cause you're
Yeah. It turns out to be 7. It turns out to be 7 staff people. There's one that's almost full-time. Donna Damasio, our church secretary, is basically a full-time position. Almost all the other 6 are somewhat part-time. They vary. And I had that plus up there. The plus is all of our organists and keyboard operators and choir directors and all that stuff. So that's about $120,000. Mark mentioned earlier, Gary mentioned earlier, the $325,000 are support for Illinois Lutheran Schools. You'll see down in line F, the total expenses is $784,000. At $325 is about 42% of our budget. 42% of every dollar we give goes to support Illinois Lutheran Schools.
And which we've discussed this, it's unusual in the Wells.
Unprecedented.
Unprecedented in the Wells. For one congregation to support a school of with that magnitude.
Yeah.
Pre-K through 12.
Yeah, pre-K
We
through
have a high
12 for 2 congregations to support a school. Now, there are pre-K to 12 schools, but nothing like 2 churches supporting it. Yeah,
So-
and I don't know who said it, and I don't know when it was, but way back when the school in 1885, when they first started talking about high school, and with 2 churches, they were told that you can't do that, it's impossible. We did. So.
So the next one, line D, is ministry program expenses. Those are our board spending things. So it's all the stuff for the Board of Worship to put on to worship services, Board of Elders for all of their expenses, Board of Family for their programs, all of our various boards. So we spend about $74,000 on that. $73,000 or so is to kind of run the operations, utilities, insurance, liability insurance, property insurance, and office expenses to supplies and all that kind of stuff, IT expenses, copier stuff.
Yep.
So total expenses of $784 is in the budget. It's an increase of $37,000 over last year's budget, and that's about a 5% increase. About $23,000 of it is going for payroll and benefits, and the vast majority of that is going for our staff. People like Colton here and Donna and Mary Beth Stout and all those people that are really working hard. The majority, and that was by recommendation of their boss, Pastor Taliano, to increase their hourly rates.
Which they haven't received a raise in a while.
Yeah, our pastors, they're based upon the Synod scale, so the pastors, their annual increase is about $1,000. But then in addition to that, then there's that $3,000 that we're recommending for tuition assistance for them. By the way, that the recommendation to add tuition assistance for Illinois Lutheran Schools for our pastors, that mimics what Zion has been doing for a number of years, about 20 years or so, for their pastors there. So it's half of the tuition capped at $3,000 per family. Now here comes the challenge, folks. The general fund receipts needed to balance the budget to get to $784,000. We project and estimate that the special offering designations and gift would be about $47,000. The support from the endowment fund is based upon 5% of the previous year's balance at the end of December, so we have about $2.4 million in our endowment fund. It's 5% of that, so it's 119, about 120,000. And then the general fund offerings, these are the electronic offerings, online plate offerings, your envelope offerings and all that. in order to balance the budget needs to be $618,000. Our projected general fund offerings, you mentioned, I think I mentioned in the previous one, the total offerings that were 600 and something. But the general fund offerings, again, the electronic giving, online, basket, envelopes and that, this fiscal year that's will end this past Sunday, or today, is 533,000. So it's an increase of 85,000 from 533 to 618. So that's where our challenge is. The council believes that the expense side of this is what we need to do to carry on effective ministry, to carry out our mission and vision here at Trinity and what we're supposed to do to grow God's kingdom. So it's a bit of a challenge. Like I said, I've been here for 30 years, and I don't think we've ever challenged the congregation for an increase of 16%.
Yep.
Last year was low. Again, I think I mentioned in the previous slide that we're $35,000 lower than the previous year. Our average general fund offerings over the last 5 years is about 565 to 570,000. We were really low. We really kind of took a little bit of a vacation this fiscal year. So we need to get that up and then increase it even more. So that's the challenge, and that's what we all need to pray about.
So it seems daunting, but if you were able to see the video that Pastor Italiano put together, where part of that video was, he gave that description of the dollar bill, and it broke off to where things are going. And near the end, he said there was a figure, if every giving unit could increase their giving by...
Well, the simple math is we have about 150 families here that are regular in our worship attendance. So that's where our money comes from, not the 35% of our congregation that unfortunately doesn't worship here more than once a year. But there's roughly about 150 envelope holders who worship here regularly. So if you take 52 weeks a year and 150 giving units, $11 a week. An increase of $11 a week will give you the $85,000. That's 2 Starbucks, guys. That's 2 Happy Meals. So when you boil it down to that, it's maybe not so
Yeah,
wrong.
it's not, you get that deer in headlights look when you talk about budgets and $700-some thousand and X% increase, and people are like, huh? You'd say, it's $11 a week. It's pretty simple math at that point. So even if more than just our giving units can do that, just think how much we could expand our ministry. It's amazing what you can do when you think about it.
And the reality is that, ministry costs money. It's the way of the world. We have to pay salaries, we have to pay benefits, we have to pay for paper or bulletins, things of that nature.
Air
so
conditioning.
we just need it. We need it. It's just a part of it.
So this is the most boring part of the night so far. So questions, comments, Pat first.
Well, part of the problem is you say 35% of the congregation doesn't worship or gives nothing.
It's in that vicinity, yeah.
That's right. And the goal is to get that 35% to be involved and give something. If you do that, then we'll more than reach our goal.
Oh, yeah.
The goal is not to get them to give money. The goal is to get them to heaven. The goal is to get them to heaven.
Right. If they come, they're gonna, their hearts are gonna be filled, and what are they gonna do?
Yeah.
And you're gonna be more apt to give.
Sure.
Yeah. Trust us, one of the most uncomfortable things is to ask people for money. It's terrible. It's a terrible thing to do. But it's got to be done.
Sonia?
On the prior slide, the thing about the general assistance fund and the puppets and all that kind of stuff, thank you. How did that come about that 100,000 of that is taken off for the refresh project? When and how was that decision made?
Well, it was made by the voters in a Zoom meeting about 3 or 4 months ago, I think. We did the refresh thing.
Yeah.
That was done by a Zoom meeting. And basically that money is coming from the federal government. It's coming from the payroll protection plan. So when COVID hit, we didn't let anybody go from our staff. We didn't reduce pay from anybody from our staff. So there were 2 loans, one in 2019 that was about
2020 in March.
Oh, 2020.
March or April.
Yeah, and that was
about 42.
About 42, and then we had a second one, which is the remaining one, that 58. So there was more than 42, I think.
Yeah, it was 46 or something,
46. So we had about 105,000 from the federal government that goes through our general fund. It created a surplus, and so that's where that money's coming from.
Okay, so it's not coming out of
No.
people giving to general assistance fund?
No.
All
Those
right.
funds remain for their designated purpose.
Yeah.
Rich?
Were those funds initially loans,
They were.
and they're supposed to be paid back, and now people are counting on them as being forgiven?
Yeah, so one of them already has been forgiven, and we know the calculation for the second one, for the 58,000. You have to wait 6 months after you get the loan in order to do it, and so we got that loan in February. So that even though the regs aren't completely out on it, but we'll be able to apply for the forgiveness of that loan. And it's guaranteed to be forgiven because we passed the calculation by a factor like 2.
Yeah, I want to say the general rule of thumb was if you didn't borrow over $1 million, it's going to get forgiven if you ask for it.
But we do qualify for it. We know what the calculation, the federal regulations are clear. What did the school apply for in the 2 loans? What did they get? 200,000 or 300,000?
300,000, 380,000 maybe, somewhere around there. And we still haven't. It's still sitting in there because we have to wait. And I believe it has been forgiven already. We didn't qualify for the second part. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, because you had to have
I'll explain that more, but we didn't qualify for the second.
You had to have a 25% decrease in offerings
Right.
year over year for one of your quarters to qualify.
It was right around 300,000. It's right around there.
Pam?
I'll be next. The first thing I want to say, I think it's amazing that 150 families are doing all of that already. I mean, that's amazing.
Those are the regular giving units.
Right.
You know, there's many more than that.
But then, I wanted to ask, wasn't there something like money given to outreach? And so, like when we had an outreach minister or staff minister, that was actually being paid for through,
Well, when the endowment fund was established, when Adeline Moeller passed away in 1998, I think, and we decided that we had this wonderful gift that ended up being, I don't know, for the church and school, it ended up being $6 million. $6 million, $6 or $7 million at the time. We've used the land sale proceeds for building projects. And again, there's both the church and the school, as we speak today, have about $2.5 million in the endowment. So we're using the earnings. We keep the endowment principle in place. The idea was then so back in 2000 or so when the endowment was established and we began to distribute funds, the purpose of that was to expand ministries. We wanted to make sure that it didn't support ongoing ministries here and take the privilege and the obligation for our members to continue to support the ministries here at Trinity. So what we did at that time is we called a third full-time worker, Mark Blauert, our staff minister. To my knowledge, Trinity never had 3 full-time called workers up until then, other than teachers. So it was used for that, and we also used it to expand later on personal member ministry, the position to grow. That's all part of our expanded ministries here now. So, and then when Mark Blauert took his call, the council and the lead pastor, Pastor Talianos, soon at that time, the decision was made that we would not call another full-time worker. Instead, we would hire a staff of 5 or 6 part-time workers to be able to spread the ministry a lot further, and they were paid positions.
I thought it was designated for that. But my only point to that was that like when you explain things, like when you're asking for money, it would be good to explain, like for instance, that 100,000. Someone might look and go, well, I'm not giving to general assistance because they just took that and used it to, so
Yep.
like to make sure people see that like things aren't being taken out of other funds. Or
Yeah, once something's designated for a particular purpose and the fund is approved, that's kept for that purpose. But you and Sonia both had the same thing, so we have something to learn from. I think when we approved the thing we announced to the congregation, really what the real source of the money was the federal loans that would be forgiven.
And there was.
But that's a good point. We know that we need to do better about communicating about finances and that and needs. This congregation has always responded to a need once the need has been explained and they understand it. It's been remarkable.
And Pam, I think what Pam's talking about is the annual gift that we got every year, and I can't think of the name of the individual that donated. There's a full salary that was donated every year for a couple of years, wasn't there?
Marion.
Well, that just happened to be one of our members, Marion
Right.
Dieter, who
Yeah,
passed away.
I think that
but-
might be what you were talking about. That
But
person, she
hers were just,
donated
that was just
full
plain
salary.
general fund offerings.
Well, the only reason I was bringing that up is I thought, like, when you say we need money, but then they might see, oh, we've got these 6 other workers, like, that you can explain where that money comes from, that it's not coming out of this.
Yep.
It's coming from here, or, you know what I mean?
We have another number of designated funds that are in
Right.
that 307,000.
Amy,
Other questions?
do you have one?
Yes, kind of piggybacking off of Pam, just to be able to go and communicate to our members, maybe even in the email that Donna sends out, explaining the blurb that, you know, this is our deficit and we have, you know, these many members. You know, I mean, this, breaking it down mathematically for people, just to kind of give them a scope. I think sometimes it's hard to go and think that you're gonna make a difference if you see a huge number.
Yep.
But if you present it in a way that makes it smaller and positions a person as a part of a greater entity, like,
Yep.
like hands make light, many hands make light work kind
Yep.
of mentality.
Yep.
Maybe if that's presented.
That's a good point, because when I explained $11 per family, that's understandable, and we will do that. If this budget is approved by the voters tomorrow, we will probably use every form of communication we can, whether it's newsletters, whether it's the weekly Friday tidings.
Just say it's
Yeah.
$11.
Yeah.
I hear that and it's like, okay,
Sure.
here's twice that, 2 times that. I can, you know, that's something that I think it's all in how you
Yep.
frame it.
Yep.
Exactly.
You know you make a difference that way.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's the beauty of going in and if you're able to set up this electronic giving that comes directly out of your account or goes against one of your debit card or credit cards, because then it's there every week. Because you might say, yeah, I can easily do this. I can do $20 a week. Well, you miss 6 Sundays a year or something. That, you know, so that's one of the things.
It makes.
But we will do that. We'll communicate it in ways that can be understood. That's.
I'll piggyback off of
You can.
You guys are such great students. The academic conversations are fantastic.
Yes, we're having fun over here. Thank you for including us. So just talking about people growing in their giving, right? That just like your electric bill goes up, churches' expenses go up, and how is everybody continuing to grow in their giving? Just remembering that goes up too.
And you have to.
Yeah.
You have to grow in your relationship with your Lord and Savior before that comes. I think statistics show new members, people that are coming to faith in that, one of the last fruits that shows up is giving. You have to have a basis of faith. Pete?
Can I use that piggybacking off of Al? So, yeah, we do appreciate your comments. We've been talking about this as a council for, what, months? And Pastor Cookie's, you know, I hate to ask people for money. It's more, what it boils down to is it's a spiritual issue. I mean, that's what Al's saying.
Yeah.
You know, that's where it all starts, you know, so.
Yeah, it's thanks to God for what He's done for us.
Yeah.
It really is. It's appreciation of what He's given you and you give back. You know, we're managers of His money. So, just what do you do with it?
No more piggybacks?
Backs are tired. Backs are tired.
There you go. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Al. Oh.
I think that's it.
Vision. Lori's turn. So Lori's on the Guiding Coalition. She is one of the members of the Guiding Coalition. What is a Guiding Coalition?
I will tell you.
There you go.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm just turning around to look. I think I know everybody that's in the room, so you know who I am then too. So, Lori Lorick. So the Guiding Coalition is actually the strategic planning team that is here to help move the strategic planning process along. At Trinity and Illinois Lutheran, we've been really blessed by leadership that values and intentionalizes planning. And I've been blessed to be part of strategic planning here since 1999, so for a long time on and off. We belong to an amazing family of believers that shares the gospel of Jesus Christ to nurture God's people and reaches out to others, all to glorify God. And so, as we look at the update tonight, I want to go back and talk about our previous vision. It was called Vision 2020. I'm sorry, Mark, my back's to you. Vision 2020, and it was focused on all the things and the blessings that we could accomplish by the end of 2020. So you would have thought we would have started the next vision planning process about that time, but as you remember, Pastor Cook was new, so we wanted him to get his feet wet. And then this lovely thing called COVID, not so lovely, hit, right? And so we kind of had it put on the back burner, but by fall, we were able to move forward with the strategic planning process. And the leadership engaged Pastor Elton Stroh from Crossroads Consulting to lead us through a strategic planning process. So early in November, we assembled a core team with a guiding coalition team with the theme of growing young. So we wanted to bring people along who were younger than some of us so that they could carry on the process. So that team met first on November 7th of 2020, and that team included myself and Mr. Daniel Whitty as co-chairs. And then we had Donna Damasio, Pastor Italiano, Andrea Harpin, Emily and David Kenyon, and Jim Jans. We have them all on our team currently, so they're the ones that have been working to make stuff happen. So on November 20th to the 21st, Elton Stroh came and he did a presentation on the introduction to the strategic planning process. And then between that date and January 22nd, the Guiding Coalition split up a whole bunch of work, which was called the Diagnostic Analysis Instruments. And so each of those teams took and did research and compiled a bunch of information that we shared with Pastor Stroh and his team. So we had 3 on-site consultants, and hopefully you remember them, Pastor Elton Stroh, Pastor Tim Glendy, and Pastor Randy Hunter. And they were here on site from February 12th to the 14th. And then they did a bunch of those pulse groups. Maybe some of you were part of those. And you remember that they gave us a written report that came to us in late March. And then on Saturday, April 10th, Pastor Stroh was here again. We reviewed that written report, and he took us through a workshop called Preparing for the Future. And then we had listening session facilitators trained that weekend as well. And so we had approximately 15 different in-person or Zoom listening sessions that happened. And that was April 18th to the 24th. And then there were about a half dozen listening sessions for the teens and college students the week of May 16th to the 23rd. So we had approximately 200 people participate in all of those listening sessions that were held. And then all of those notes, so everything that you had to say, was compiled into one set of documents. So all of that has been distributed now to the appropriate boards. So the executive board has stuff that they're reviewing, board of trustees, board of elders, and they've all received those documents, right guys? Mm-hmm. Yes, they've all received those documents, and now they're going to submit their highlights. So they're looking through everything that you said, gathering the information, identifying what needs to be addressed. And then that information goes back to Pastor Stroh, and then eventually he's going to come back here. But tonight, what I'd like to do is invite you to a couple of things. We're going to have some discussions. The first one is going to be on core values, and that's going to be, and these dates will be in your newsletters, on Monday, August 9th from 7 to 9. So what are the core values of our church? We're going to talk about the core mission and the 7-year target on Monday, August 30th from 7 to 9, and you're all invited to participate in that as well. And then on Sunday, September 26th, I've got this book here called Traction, and this is kind of the key concept behind how our church is going to function with our vision document. And so all of our leadership, all the council board members are all going to read that book, and anybody who's interested in growing in a leadership process is welcome to read the book and join the book discussion. We just got a commitment from Pastor Don Sutton from St. Paul's in New Ulm that he's going to come down and facilitate that discussion for us. And you might say, well, why does somebody from somewhere else have to do that? He's an expert in it. He's utilized it in his church for the past 6 years. That name may ring a bell. So Pastor Italiano actually had the call to replace Pastor Sutton. But Don's church has done a phenomenal job of integrating this into how they do ministry. And it's just a strategic planning process in order to move that forward. So that'll happen that night. You can order the book online if you're interested. Elton will return, this sounds way out there, October 22nd and 23rd for our vision development event. Then in November and December, that'll get wordsmithed. And then hopefully by January, we'll have an open forum and an adoption of the new vision. So at this point, I'd just like to thank all of you guys that participated, whether it was a pulse group, whether it was a listening session. That was huge. Taking those surveys in the pews, all that plays into how we hear from you so that the leadership knows what direction to go. So at that point, are there any questions? Derek.
One of the items that we had talked about was having or doing a just a like a not like a panel, but instead of doing a what did we do? I'm sorry. What is it
Pulse
called?
groups.
The pulse groups. Instead
Listening
of doing
sessions.
that just like every 7 years.
Right.
Doing it more, once a year, maybe twice a year. A biannual kind of meeting where we're talking about, okay, how are things going here? Is there plans for developing something like that?
So typically when we have, say, a 7-year vision, we set it up in different segments, 1-year goals, 3-year goals, etc. So we don't just set something up as 7 years and then forget about it, right? And hope we hit our 7-year goals in 7 years from now. So part of traction is goal setting and how are people, how are boards, how are committees held accountable to what they're supposed to be doing. Part of some of that listening session was people wanted to know more about things more frequently, hence like open forums. So yes, we do have that intention to get the pulse of the congregation in more often, if that makes sense. So that's key. Communication is key. We want to stress communication. You guys might get sick.
It's a good idea to, talk more often. It goes to the
transparency.
Transparency. There you go. We call it transfiguration. It's a different kind of transparency, so that the congregation has a voice and not, anyways,
Yes.
So you're talking about the listening sessions that we did it was about 2 or 3 months ago. Most of them were Zoom, some of them were in person, but there were groups of 6 to 10 people or so.
Right.
And I think what we heard, I don't know how many, there were about, what did you say, about 200 people total?
Yeah.
And 50 of them or so were teens or college or so?
A little bit less than that.
Yeah, so 160 or so of our members here, adult members that participated, and almost every one of them that participated said they really enjoyed the opportunity to go through that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we understand what you're saying, and we heard that loud and clear, and we probably shouldn't wait every 7 years to do that.
Yeah.
We need to figure out what to do.
Well, and Derek, if I can, just another response to that is, even this is kind of in response to, hey, we want to have more conversations, right? The teen ministry, you heard in the video, I think, that teen ministry is going to be starting up. That was heard already. So even though it looks like it's taking a while for the strategic planning process to get done, it is, there's things that are happening, those quick wins along the way. Luann?
Yeah, this is pretty trivial, but that was Vision 2020. What's
Yeah.
this? Does this have a title?
Yeah, we haven't titled it, have we?
No, we haven't. So that could be part of our.
Vision 2020 was just really easy and
Yeah.
really catchy,
Yeah.
you know?
2027. Get it? Yeah.
With COVID, we were all, what's going to be next, right? I mean, we were kind of still sitting in that place, but
Yeah, and a part of the vision planning, there were several almost immediate things we could work on right away, and that was picking music for the blended services. That came out of it was the listening sessions, I
Yep.
think. Or
Well,
maybe
that was
pulse
the
groups, maybe pulse
diagnostic,
groups,
yep.
And then there was a couple other things, I can't remember what they are off the top of my head, but those 3 items were a plan was made for them immediately. You know, that's separate of the vision, something to get started fixing right away.
Yeah, the consultants came back after their initial thing and say, based on what we heard, we suggest you address these 4 things right away. And that's what we did right away.
Music,
And
outreach, and something else. I can't think of what.
The life groups.
the life
small
groups,
groups.
yeah, the small groups,
Yeah.
Bible study,
Yeah.
life
Yeah.
groups,
Yeah.
growth groups.
Yeah.
There's 1,000 different names, right?
And even the facilities was one of the things, the facilities updates that is happening that was mentioned in that diagnostic report.
Yeah.
So, other questions? Yeah.
Is there a reason that it's 7 year? It's a 7-year goal? Why so long? I think because 7 years from now, our goals may have changed from.
And that's the beauty of traction.
Yep.
So it's like, let's take a look, where do you think we're going? What's the longest range? Let's think out 7 years so you can dream big, right? Where would we like to be in 7 years? But the process can be those baby steps that you're updating.
Yes, so there's not everything is 7 years. 7 years is the max that we're looking out to. We had the option, because we talked about, do we do 5 years? Do we do, so the number's arbitrary, but you go backwards, and so there are gonna be 1-year goals, 3-year goals, and you see how you target and hit those to reach ultimately that seven-year goal at the end. So there's baby steps, some leaps, and then you hope and pray.
You have a good point though, because Eldon Starr, our lead consultant, challenged us on that. So I think 20 years ago, in 1999, when we did our first vision planning, the state of the art then was 7-year goals, and things have changed now. And now he told us that most of the congregations he consults with, they don't do 7, it's 4 or 5.
On what comes up in the next 3 or 4 months, it may be only 5.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that things change. I mean, look at last year. Wow, you don't have any clue what's coming up.
And-
Your life can change like that.
Well, the beauty of this kind of plan is that you do have the ability to change. Our 3-year goals at the school were the building, grade school building, increased enrollment, early childhood center, and we, over the course of planning for this, we realized that we were just not in a position for an early childhood center yet, based on the structure and everything we have in place. So that they haven't been changed yet. That'll be changed as probably within the next couple of months. Those 3-year goals will be changed and updated. So.
It's really a good point, Ed. I think the other thing is we probably shy away from it a little bit because, as Lori explained, this is a heavy lift. This is a heavy lift for the congregation, for the guiding coalition, and our pastors. To go through this process is a lot of work to do it right. And so that it's difficult to bite it off a little bit more often, but it's probably the right thing to do.
What our consultants say, the majority of the congregations do not do a vision. They don't do planning. They're winging it.
And this is our 4th iteration.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think Rick gets on.
Rick.
Well, I was just gonna say that usually you set up your plans, but certain things take longer, like the building project. Well, you don't do that in 2 years, it's gonna take 5, 6, 7 years. So those plans, that's why you get 7, okay? And to do the building, there's certain things you have to get done before you get to that point. What do we really need? Is it important to do, one of the things we were gonna do originally was maybe we should just tear the building down. Should we do that instead of build new? And so there's a couple different things like that. So a part of the process is what do you do now? What can you do now? And what do you have to get ready for later? So that's how the process always runs.
Yep. Absolutely. Any other questions on vision? Hopefully, you'll, just like you came tonight, Pam. Yes.
Talking vision, we don't have much room for adult Bible class anymore, and we haven't even had it for quite a while. And so what are we gonna do about that? And then I'm visualizing this building where you're talking about administrative stuff, also having a walkway, maybe for classes or something, or.
So part of the refresh piece is not just getting the refresh done, but then having another team that looks at what's the next step for facilities. So that's the long-range plan for that we have to be intentional about it. Because just like when Al and I built our new house and everything was new and great, everything starts falling apart at the same time, you know? And that's kind of where we're at with this. And we were like, oh, we could do this, and we could do that, and then instantly it was like, budget, Lori. We're there.
And that is definitely some pieces that are going to be looked at in this vision planning, because facilities is one of the sections, right?
It's one where we had 200 opinions.
Yes.
Right, so we
Yep. Yeah, because we know we're short on space. What's the best way? What's the smartest way to approach increasing space, increasing our ministry? And that's hopefully part of it. If you remember back, part of this way back vision is how we got this right here.
Right.
You know, that's how Amazing Love started, was part of one of our visions. All these good things were part of vision planning. So it's hard to think that far ahead, but we can do some cool stuff.
Yeah. And I think, you know, there were a lot of comments about when the building was designed and stuff like that, and we just honor the past and the people that have gone before us in getting us to this place, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because can you imagine what ministry would have been like if we didn't have this much space 17 years ago? I mean, a lot of ministry has been able to be accomplished.
If I can remember correctly, you know, we were raising money for that, and we ended up actually underestimating what we could have done.
Yes, that's exactly
We
right.
were so excited to get to it.
Yep.
Yeah. Amy?
Question, is, in this refresh, is there anything that's going to be addressed in the sanctuary? Because we're gonna have this gorgeous coffee court and place to meet and gather, and then we make this transition to,
Red
I don't
carpeting?
know what-
Red
what-
carpeting?
Right, red carpeting, and
Old red carpet.
Old red
And-
carpeting.
how do we, is there anything to address and kind of somewhat transition into that sanctuary? Not that I'm advocating that anything is done with those stained glass windows or the architecture, but there has to be something to make it more contemporary that doesn't make this refresh look
Not attached.
right, like except for a child and, but without, squashing the history that's in that sanctuary.
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll go.
Do it.
So one of the things, right, we interviewed a lot of people when we were getting ready to do the refresh and talked to a lot of people about what is needed, and you guys know, because I know you all have, a place to live. You know what it's like when the snowball starts going. So Audrey Paul actually looked up, I'm gonna not know my numbers, but she looked up when that red carpeting went into the sanctuary and what the cost of it was. And then we looked at the estimate of the cost of replacing that. And with our $100,000 budget, we couldn't touch it. It's in that next stage plan.
Yes.
And again, we didn't want to compete with the schools, but we wanted the introductory area to be, we're welcoming younger families, younger people. And so that's part of the long-range plan, for sure, Amy. So thank you for mentioning that.
Yes, it is definitely part of the long-range plan. Paint, carpeting, organ, pipes, not organ, pipes, things like that in the sanctuary. The consultants, the design. So you saw this big trend of moving towards the big open 1,000-seat churches. That they say what we have is what people are looking for now. That comfortable sanctuary that they feel like home in there instead of a big auditorium feel.
That's very economical for us.
Yes, it is, Amy.
Yes, it is. So it just needs to be refreshed a little bit.
Question and a comment. Question is upgrading or fixing our sound system so it's not so wonky. Is that in 1, 2, to be
Yes,
determined?
it's in the next one, right?
That would be in the next
yes,
one.
Well, in fact, depending on how expensive it is, it's something I think we talked about could be addressed, the sound system. That could be paid for out of that facility enhancement fund.
Yes.
I mean, it's not
Because
just,
that
it's
sound
not just
system
when
is,
you're here.
that sound
You're-
system's 20 years
Yeah,
old.
if
and
you're trying
it-
to stream online, it's.
Oh,
you
yeah.
have to turn it up for the pastor or turn it down.
Turn it down,
It's-
yes.
It's
Mhm.
difficult.
Yeah.
And then I love all the refresh, all the planning, it's all fantastic. But unless we as members of this church are welcoming to people who walk in our door, none of that matters.
Mhm.
And I think we all have to remind ourselves that we're all used to each other's faces, but a simple hello, how are you, will do much more than all of that.
Mhm.
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly.
Good, very good point. Goes
Gary,
a
what's
long
your,
way.
Gary, what's your outreach saying?
If we're gonna be outreach minded, we need to be outreach minded.
It's pretty simple.
And it's
Simple as that.
all of our responsibilities, not just
The
the outreach
ushers or the
committee.
pastors or something like that. It's everybody. It's, all it takes is a hello. I mean, just somebody walking in, you just want to feel welcome, right? You got to get out. The thing is, get out of your comfort zone. Get out of your comfort zone.
But we all need to do it. It's a great point. I think everybody here knows how it's being done now. Nobody gets in that front door without Mary Beth greeting them. So she started it.
Yep.
And I can add to that Mary Beth is putting together, looking at doing greeters again. So if you have the passion for that, please talk to Mary Beth and she'd love to have you. on
Without the
team.
artificial feel of greeters,
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
genuine.
Without blue vest.
Hang on, you gotta wait your turn, Pam. Sorry, Derek's first.
I was, piggyback off of that one. Maybe something that the pastor can do to help the congregation is just to say, all right, your mission right now is to find somebody in the room that you don't know, go say hello to them, get to know them, or something like that. And just have that as a goal after every Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
He would, Pastor Tayano, he would do that, granted it was prior to COVID, but there were many times, that's how, past events, even Pastor Stellick would go and say, turn around and greet the person next to you, or go, one of them was, go and find someone you know, and then find someone else you don't know, just to kind of,
And if that is mentioned by the pastor at every Sunday, it soon becomes a habit.
Yep. Yep.
And I don't know that this is a majority opinion, but I will say that there are, and we've heard it, there are some that would just prefer to just walk to their seat and sit down. They don't want to talk to anybody.
Right.
Because that's just who they are. They're just not that kind of a person. So yes, we want to be outgoing and welcoming, but at the same time, we want to.
Not everybody's wired that
We don't want to.
You don't wanna
We don't want to
overwhelm people
jump. It was
here.
and we don't want to do what we did when kids came back to school this year. We're like, how you doing? Do you need help? So we don't want to do that.
Freaking me out.
Yeah, we don't think we want to do that.
And it's gotta be
Right.
genuine.
It's like, what are you doing?
Reader thing, that maybe we could have some teenagers out there actually reading, so that when younger people come, they feel,
Yes.
like there's more younger people around.
Are there
I think Mary
people
Beth's on it.
So that's-
designated
I think
to
Mary Beth knows.
Yes.
talk to these younger people and say, hey, we need your help. Can you do this for us? I mean, is there someone designated for something like a headhunter or something? Just someone
Mary
that
Beth's
specifically
outreach.
says.
Melissa Sanders in your member ministry program should be helping you identify who those people are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this discussion is developing into another listening session.
There you
So
go.
many of
Right,
these-
that's
many
what
of
it's all
these things
about.
have
It'll be
been-
fine.
Yeah, it have been, but it's really good. Really
Rich.
good.
I want to stick one little point in. My wife and I will, and I know other people too, I'll say, hey, have I met you? Oh, yeah. I'll usually tell them my name is, and they say, I know.
Or they'll say, I've been here for 7
But
years.
it's all in good fun when they do that.
Yes.
When I grew up here, sitting in church, right, and it's changed so much, and I tell everybody, hi, Connie, and I just love it.
Hey, Rich, I love your approach. hey, have I met you? Now, are you a member here? That's the wrong thing to say. Hey, have I met you?
Yes, have I met you
Right?
yet? Yeah.
It's a great answer.
That's a great
Any other questions, or I'm sitting down?
Go ahead. Sit down.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Lori. Thank you so much. And thanks for all your work on you and Dan. That's huge, huge. That's a lot of work. A lot of work. I think that is everything. So unless any more general questions, we've taken a lot more time than I thought we were going to, and it's great. So I know you probably have kids to get home to and work tomorrow. So unless there's anything else, thank you all for coming. Thank you very much. And we want to do more of this.
Thanks, guys.
When's the next one?